Sun Pharma's mega move. Will a 1 lakh crore deal change the game? Why the global pharma market could see major turbulence? In the quiet of the night, the stock market has already closed, but some deals begin creating waves only after the exchange bell has stopped ringing. The lights stay on in boardrooms, lawyers keep flipping through documents, bankers keep moving numbers around, and investors ask just one question. By the time morning comes, is the power balance of an entire sector about to change? This time, that same kind of unease is visible in the pharma world. The reason is a piece of news that has suddenly pushed Indian corporate ambition into the global spotlight. Reports say that Sun Pharmaceutical Industries is moving quickly toward a binding bid of around $12 billion, or nearly 1 lakh crore rupees, for the American pharma company Organon and Company. If this deal goes through, it will not be just an acquisition. It will be a declaration of a mindset in which Indian pharma is no longer emerging as a follower, but as a global dealmaker. According to a recent report by Economic Times, Sun Pharma has made progress toward a binding offer for Organon, completed major parts of due diligence, and accelerated work on the financing structure. In other words, this is not a story of deal done, but of deal closing in. The market is excited because if this bid turns into a formal acquisition, it could become the biggest overseas deal in Indian pharma history. But the uncertainty is also there because before the final signature, deals of this size go through many turns. Valuation, debt, regulatory clearance, competing interest, and board approvals are all stages that still remain. Sun Pharma is not a new name in India. Sun counts itself among the world's leading specialty generics companies, claims to be India's largest pharma company, and also has a strong presence in the US generics market and emerging markets. In the company's February 2nd 026 investor presentation, India formulations, US formulations, emerging markets, and the innovative/specialty mix were shown as its major pillars. That is why seeing Sun Pharma only as a generic drug manufacturer has now become incomplete. Over the past few years, its strategy has steadily moved in the direction of increasing its stature in branded, specialty, and differentiated products. That is why interest in a company like Organon does not look like a sudden impulse, but rather the next logical step in a long-maturing corporate ambition. Now the question arises, what makes Organon so special? Organon is an American company that was spun off by Merck in 2021. Its focus has been especially on women's health, biosimilars, and established brands. According to Organon's 2024 annual disclosures and earnings release, its total revenue in 2024 was around $6.4 billion, of which the women's health portfolio alone contributed close to $1.8 billion, or about 28% of total revenue. This women's health business is the company's most defining strength. In segments like fertility, contraception, and women-centric treatments, Organon's established presence makes it a strategic target. In other words, this is not some struggling shell company, but a platform with a ready portfolio, global footprint, and therapy-specific identity. And this is where the most interesting turn in the story is hidden. Until now, Sun Pharma has largely spoken the language of dermatology, ophthalmology, oncodermatology, complex generics, branded generics, and specialty medicines. Organon, on the other hand, could give Sun an entry into women's health that pushes its current portfolio in an entirely new direction. In the pharma sector, scale does not come only from revenue. Scale is also built through therapy presence, geography access, payer relationships, physician trust, and brand recall. If Sun succeeds in buying Organon, it will not just get sales. It will also get therapeutic diversification. And this diversification is strategic because women's health is an area where long-term demand is structural, not merely seasonal or cyclical. In its spin-off documentation, Organon had described the core women's health market as an opportunity of around $40 billion by 2026. That means building a place in this segment is like placing a bet on the future growth story. Still, every big opportunity carries a shadow with it, and Organon's shadow is its debt and growth pressure. The company's annual reporting and market commentary clearly show that it has been facing competitive pressure across several business segments. Its 2025 results also recorded a decline in women's health revenue, where pressure was visible on some products like NuvaRing, while growth in fertility and the JADA system provided some balance. That means Organon's portfolio is definitely valuable, but not frictionless. No buyer purchases only products. It also buys challenges, including pricing pressure, competition, debt servicing, and integration complexity. That is why this move by Sun Pharma is not just ambition, but also a calculated risk. That is exactly why the market looked not only excited by this news, but also a little nervous. After the ET report, pressure was seen on Sun Pharma's shares, and investors raised concerns about the financing burden of such a large overseas acquisition. The question is straightforward. If a deal of $12 billion happens, then how will it be funded? How much debt will be taken? How much pressure will come on the balance sheet? What will be the impact on future earnings? However shiny the headline value of an acquisition may look, the financing behind it can be just as difficult. That is why the market often accepts the strategic logic of a deal, yet still punishes the buyer's stock, because the immediate fears whether the company may be moving too far away from its image of disciplined capital allocation. The old language of Sun Pharma's management makes this story even more interesting. In recent media interactions, Dilip Shanghvi had repeatedly said that the company wants to remain disciplined when it comes to acquisitions. In January and February 2nd, 026 coverage, Shanghvi said that Sun gives priority to organic growth, wants to increase its focus on innovative medicines, and will make acquisitions only when they can be managed effectively. If needed, the company is also comfortable taking on debt. This becomes extremely important now in the context of the Organon news, because if a company that talks about disciplined M&A is now moving toward its biggest ever overseas deal of $12 billion, then it means Sun's management is seeing not an ordinary opportunity in this asset, but a transformational opportunity. In fact, to understand this deal, Sun Pharma's current identity and future aspiration both have to be seen together. Sun today calls itself the world's leading specialty generics company, and in its recent corporate materials, there is constant emphasis on innovative medicines, a specialty portfolio, and differentiated assets. In company communications from March 2nd, 026 as well, Sun said that its high-growth global specialty portfolio stretches across dermatology, ophthalmology, and oncodermatology, and that the company is moving in the direction of innovative medicines. An Organon acquisition could take this identity to the next level. It could give Sun a tangible jump toward becoming a branded and innovative drug-making powerhouse. In other words, rising above a generic-centric image, the company could become a broader global pharma platform. But pharma acquisitions are not like acquiring a cement plant or a retail chain. Here, products, patents, regulatory filings, manufacturing standards, litigation exposure, sales channels, therapeutic expertise, and country-specific compliance all come together. A company like Organon has a mix of women's health, biosimilars, and established brands, and integrating that will not be easy. Buying a drug business is one thing. Integrating it clinically, commercially, and culturally is another. This is exactly where many big deals look brilliant on paper but begin to stumble in execution. So one major suspense in this story is this too. Even if Sun wins the bid, will it be able to handle such a complex global integration with the same skill and confidence with which the market has viewed it until now? Organon's strength lies not only in its products, but also in its geography. According to annual reports, a large part of the women's health portfolio is generated outside the US. That means the commercial reach of this business is multi-market in nature. Sun Pharma is already strong in India, the US, and emerging markets. With Organon, that reach could become even more layered. In that case, the combined entity could gain a major advantage in product breadth, geographic spread, and therapy mix. In pharma, a global network is not only a question of how many countries are you present in, it also matters in which therapeutic conversations your voice is heard. Entry into women's health could take Sun into those doctor networks, hospital channels, and patient ecosystems where its identity is still limited. This deal is also big because of the broader message it sends for the Indian pharma sector. For a long time, the global image of Indian pharma remained largely that of a cost-efficient generic supplier. India manufactures, exports, struggles with US FDA compliance, and builds scale based on volume. That has been the familiar story. But a deal like Organon would say that Indian pharma is now not just a supply chain role player, but also an active participant in global consolidation. In other words, an Indian company is now looking at a Western asset, not just through the lens of licensing or distribution, but through the lens of ownership. This shift is psychological as well as strategic. If this deal happens, it will send a message to the whole world that Indian pharma has now reached the stage of making billion-dollar balance sheet decisions. Even then, the race is not easy. Reports indicate that Sun may not be the only interested party. On assets like these, private equity interest, strategic buyers, and market volatility can all move together. The bigger the deal, the greater the competitive tension. Sometimes the seller raises the valuation, sometimes financing markets suddenly tighten, sometimes hidden risks emerge in due diligence, and sometimes the buyer itself steps back at the last minute, because the math no longer looks as beautiful as the headline. That is why it would be too early to assume that Sun Pharma is definitely buying Organon. The correct way to put it is that the company is reportedly at an advanced stage, but the final outcome is still open. And perhaps that is the most cinematic part of this entire episode. On one side is Dilip Shanghvi's old image. Measured, disciplined, understated, numbers-driven. On the other side is a potential mega deal that could change Sun Pharma's entire corporate personality. If this deal succeeds, then while talking about Sun, people will not say only India's largest pharma company. They will also say this is the company that took its biggest leap into women's health and global branded pharma. But even if the deal gets stuck somewhere, this episode will still remain a signal. Sun Pharma no longer appears satisfied with small, safe, predictable steps. It has entered the mindset of placing a big bet on the global pharma chessboard. There is one more layer to this story. Timing. Organon's 2025 revenue pressure, portfolio transitions, competition, and Sun's specialty ambitions. All of these are intersecting at the same time. In the corporate world, big deals are often made when one company wants expansion, and the other is looking for a strategic re-rating amid pressure. For Organon, finding a buyer could become a valuation unlocking story. For Sun, it could become a story of accelerated transformation. In other words, even though the meaning of the deal may be different for both sides, it could still become complementary for each of them. That is why such acquisition rumors become not just financial events in the market, but narrative events. So, will this deal create turbulence in the global market? If it goes through, the answer is yes, and on many levels. First, because of its size. Second, because it could become the biggest overseas M&A story in Indian pharma. Third, because it would mark the entry of an Indian buyer into a strategic segment like women's health. Fourth, because it could sharply shift Sun Pharma's identity upward from a generic-heavy perception toward a global innovative branded play. And fifth, because a debt-backed or banker-backed transaction of this size can affect investor psychology, peer valuations, and sector expectations. That is why this is not just news about Sun and Organon, but also news about global pharma capital flows. You something new, or if you feel this information should reach more people, don't forget to like and share the video. Your small share can become valuable and useful information for someone else. If you have any questions related to this topic, or if you would like to share your opinion with us, be sure to write in the comment box. We read every question and suggestion from you, because your feedback inspires us to create better content. And if you want to keep receiving such interesting and reliable information about business, the economy, and the world in the future, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel GRT Business and also press the bell icon so that you get notifications of every new video directly. At GRT Business, we always strive to provide you with accurate, balanced, and reliable information. Our news and analysis are prepared based on information obtained from various news agencies, public sources, and public opinion. We make every effort to verify and validate each fact as much as possible. But in case of any possible error or dispute, the responsibility lies with the respective sources. Our only aim is to present you with a correct and trustworthy perspective so that you can understand any topic better.